this is a video idea that was actually suggested to me by a good friend of mine based on some things that came up in a RE lesson discussion, and I think I've touched on a good few of the aspects of this topic in various different videos, and as far as I know I could have made a video on the exact same thing in the past, but anyways, here's that again. The topic basically is sort of the logical side of the paranormal and trying to sort of deduct an explanation for it. I'm a firm believer in the paranormal, unshakable belief. I am certain in the fact that beyond our nature there is something extra, there is something unhuman that is still remnant of human, basically. And I will forever stand firm in that belief, because to me that's what makes sense, and to others I know it makes no sense. And the entire ideology and concept of the paranormal, supernatural, extra phenomena, whichever you want to call it, has been incredibly sensationalized. And when I'm saying this, I'm not so much meaning it as, those mediums you see on TV who are like, oh, you have a son who definitely, mother, oh yes, B name, Barbara, Brian, Jeff, those type of people, all, Hollywood style paranormal. What I mean is the energy that is at the core of humans, whatever that may be, the soul, the conscious, the collection of qualia, whatever makes us humans incarnate, existing beyond death, existing as something either entirely different or as something other than what it seems to be. Like the fact that it isn't a part of the body's more so a vessel containing it, and when we die it moves on to a state of less physical being and more metaphysical, ghosty, ghouly, transparency existence. And the main argument I have for that makes some sort of logical sense is to do with the laws of thermodynamics, which are basic science. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred, which is an accepted fact. There is no way energy can be destroyed. Things that are hot turn cold, things that are up here will go down here. That's how energy works. And what if there is a form of energy that we don't understand or don't get the concepts of now, that is the functioning soul? The soul is a form of energy, the soul is a form of, power, basically. It's a source, and everyone will think, oh, that's lunacy, that makes no sense, that doesn't compute. But if you think about thermal energy, the hot-cold, 1,000 years ago we didn't fully understand that as a concept, and even maybe 200, 300 years ago, gravitational potential was a lunacy. That didn't make sense. Things that are up here could stay up here. We look to the clouds and we're like, yes, the clouds have to remain up here, but things do fall, and that bit of dust that just fell right then is a perfect example of that. Things that are up here come down, and that's fact. So it's entirely logical for there to be a factor of energy that we just don't understand, and because we don't understand it, we can't label the properties of, and then don't know what it is. And if it is a sort of conscious energy, which I've made a video on, I think, before, but if it is that conscious energy, its properties could allow it to exist as a sort of paranormal after death, because that is not being destroyed, it's only being transferred into a sort of afterlife lesser state. And maybe when these energies are sort of dedicated, you always hear of people having related emotions to, maybe if it was a possession owned by a passed on relative or close friend, or a place or activity or whatever dedicated to the person who has passed. If they've put so much of their own energy into this, couldn't the properties of that energy stick around? Because energy isn't destroyed, but it's depleted. It removes itself from the object as part of the transferal. So could it, in a very weirdly put way, stick to the object and remain there, so that when someone who, yes, doesn't understand the exploits of that type of energy scientifically, but does in a sort of way because they're akin to the person, so it's kind of an innate understanding of that person's aura, thus energy, when they're around that thing, they're kind of triggered by those almost remembrance, sometimes they might feel emotions invasive, or maybe even see what they think is that person who is dead. What if they're touching that energy with their own source of energy and are kind of breaking down that boundary between one plane and another, just because there's a sort of similarity there? And that's kind of what I think the main facet of paranormal activity is, but I think there's a lot more to it that comes more centric from sort of how humans function as a cognitive society, that we run as a system, and that system has great parts and it has major flaws, and things are bound to slip through the cognitive flaws and through them into sort of states of, as I'm saying, less physical being that stick around. You know, if someone lives a life, and if lives have purpose, which they must have for them to be doable in the way that they are, then that purpose, when it's not completed, what occurs to the sort of motivation? Does the motivation die with the vessel, or does it keep going? And it just piles up on these questions that they give themselves no explanations, and only 10 more questions to be asked. But doesn't it sound somewhat logical for a scientific type of beyond nature? Paranormal and supernatural, all they mean, very literally, is beyond our understanding, out of nature. You know, it's just not normal, it's abnormal, and abnormal is usual. Things will not always fit the pattern we understand with our tiny little human brains. Some things will never be understood by the human brain, so why can we sit there and completely denounce an idea when we have no intelligence really at all? So I don't know, if you believe, maybe say. If you don't, say why not, say why. Just have a ghosty ghouly chat in the comments, because I do love this sort of thing. It's a real sort of guilty pleasure of mine. Fucking love the potential and, you know, possibilities behind the supernatural. It's just so interesting, and one of my favourite things to look into and discover and explore, because really it is the polar opposite of the life we live. It's something we could never understand unless we're in it, but still draws so much of us in because it's so interesting and so wild, yet it's one of those things that no one believes in, but everyone believes in, but sees, but doesn't, and it's mind-blowing, and there's such a huge divide that I want to close by discussing it. So let's talk in down.